Have you ever made a mistake at work so awkward you questioned your life choices? I was actually looking forward to it, a change of pace from the usual grind. I even bought a new outfit. I thought the company picnic would be fun. My department head promised games and food. He also said attendance was mandatory. That last part took some of the shine off. I usually spend my weekends doing my own thing. Socializing with coworkers is not high on my list. Still, I wanted to make a good impression. This was only my third month at the company. I figured showing some team spirit couldn't hurt. The outfit I bought was a simple sundress. It was comfortable and appropriate, I hoped. The community center wasn't fancy, but it was clean. I saw a lot of familiar faces when I walked in. Some people I recognized from meetings, others from the break room. A few people I hadn't met in person yet. Everyone seemed to be making an effort to mingle. I chatted with a few people from other departments. It was mostly small talk about the weather and the food. One person asked me about my role and what I did day to day. I answered their questions as best I could. The day went fine, if a little forced. The games were cheesy, but people seemed to be trying to engage. By the time dinner rolled around, everyone was happy to sit down and relax. The community center had a large main hall and a few smaller rooms off to the sides. One room was designated for the buffet, another for drinks, and I assumed the others were storage or maybe a quiet space for people who needed a break. I had chatted with a few coworkers during the games, including a guy from the marketing department I found attractive. Let's call him Mark. We had good conversation, laughing at each other's terrible volleyball skills and making sarcastic comments about the team building exercises. He was funny and easy to talk to, and I was definitely feeling a little flirty vibe. I noticed Mark seemed to make an effort to stand near me whenever possible after our volleyball game. I found myself doing the same, subtly positioning myself to be in his line of sight. We ended up talking more during the afternoon session, finding common ground on several work-related annoyances. The playful banter continued, and I started wondering if he felt the same way I did. I tried not to read too much into it, reminding myself it was a work event and I should act professionally. Still, I enjoyed his company and felt a little spark of excitement whenever he was near. I made a point of sitting near him at dinner. I focused on eating, though I admit I stole glances at Mark. The dinner conversation was mostly work-related, but Mark interjected with funny comments, keeping things light. I was enjoying myself, but I also felt a little self-conscious. I worried I was being too obvious about my interest in him. I made sure to contribute to the group discussion so I wouldn't appear completely focused on Mark. I thought the evening went well. After dinner, I lost track of Mark. I was talking to a group about a project, and when I looked around, he was gone. I felt a little disappointed, but I figured he was probably just talking to someone else. I grabbed a glass of water and started wandering around, hoping to run into him again. That's when I saw him disappear into one of the smaller rooms. The door wasn't completely closed, and I thought I saw him duck inside. A mischievous thought popped into my head. I would sneak in and surprise him, maybe make him jump. It seemed like a fun, playful thing to do, especially after the slightly manufactured fun of the team-building activities. I crept down the hallway. My footsteps made almost no noise on the carpet. I reached the door he went into. I paused for a moment to listen. I didn't hear anything coming from inside. That made me even more curious. I wondered what he was doing. He probably thought he was alone. This would be a good surprise. I reached for the door handle. I turned it very slowly. The latch clicked quietly. I pushed the door open just a crack. I peeked through the opening. I expected to see Mark looking at his phone. He often took breaks to scroll through social media. I thought maybe he was hiding from our manager. Mark didn't like these mandatory events. I took a deep breath, plastered a playful smile on my face, and quietly pushed the door open further. What I saw was definitely not Mark. I took a deep breath, plastered a playful smile on my face, and quietly pushed the door open further. What I saw was definitely not Mark. Instead of Mark, I was staring into a room full of my coworkers, most of whom were in various states of undress. It turned out that room was not a storage closet or a quiet space. It was a changing room, and a large group of female employees were using it to change out of their sweaty team-building clothes and into something more comfortable for the drive home. I recognized a couple of the women from different departments. Some of them I'd only seen in passing. I definitely recognized Janice from accounting though. She always brought cookies to the office on Fridays. I also saw Sarah from human resources. I remembered Sarah because she helped me with my benefits package when I first started. The whole situation was incredibly awkward. I instantly knew I had made a mistake. I understood I should not have opened that door. I wished I could disappear. My brain struggled to process what had just happened. I felt like I was in a bad dream. I quickly turned and walked back the way I had come. I decided I needed to get out of there as fast as possible. I hurried back to the main area where the team-building event had been taking place. I grabbed my bag and keys. I just wanted to go home and forget the whole thing ever happened. They were all staring back at me, their expressions ranging from shock to mortification. I froze, my playful smile instantly vanishing. I felt my face burn with shame. I mumbled something about being in the wrong place and quickly backed out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, even through the closed door. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. I stood there for a few seconds, paralyzed by embarrassment, before turning and practically running in the opposite direction. I needed to get out of there. My face felt hot. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. I walked as fast as I could without actually running, weaving through the office cubicles. I hoped no one would notice me. I avoided eye contact with everyone. I just wanted to reach a safe space. I needed to process what just happened. I felt like everyone was laughing at me. I finally made it to the restroom. I pushed open the door and hurried inside. I checked to make sure no one else was there. Then, I went straight to the farthest stall. I bolted the door behind me. I leaned against the cool metal, trying to catch my breath. I closed my eyes and replayed the scene in my head. The image of the room, the people, and my own stupid expression was burned into my memory. I went straight to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and took several deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart. What had I just done? This was so much worse than just walking in on someone changing. I had walked in on a whole group of people, including some of my superiors. After a few minutes, I cautiously emerged from the bathroom. I tried to act as normal as possible, grabbing my purse and heading for the exit. I avoided eye contact with everyone, but I could feel their gazes following me. I rushed out of the restaurant and into the cool night air. I fumbled with my car keys, nearly dropping them twice. I unlocked the door, jumped inside, and slammed it shut. I needed to get away from that place as fast as possible. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my hands were shaking. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself down. I started the engine and put the car in reverse. I checked my rearview mirror and backed out slowly, still feeling the weight of their stares. I turned onto the main road and pressed down on the accelerator. I drove faster than I should have, eager to put some distance between myself and the restaurant. All I wanted was to be home, safe and sound. I knew I would have to face the consequences of my actions eventually, but right then, I just wanted to escape. I made it to my car without any further incidents and practically peeled out of the parking lot. The whole drive home, I replayed the scene in my head, cringing at my own stupidity. How could I have been so reckless? The next day at work was excruciating. I tried to avoid the women who were in the changing room, but it was impossible to avoid everyone. The looks I received ranged from awkward to disapproving. No one said anything directly to me, but the tension was palpable. I needed to focus on my job, but my mind kept replaying the incident. I wondered if they believed my explanation about the misunderstanding with the door. It seemed far-fetched, even to me. I thought about calling in sick, but that would only draw more attention. I decided to stick it out and act as normal as possible. That strategy did not seem to be working so far. I felt like everyone was watching me, waiting for me to mess up again. This feeling made me clumsy and anxious. I spilled coffee on myself during my break. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to stay out of sight. I busied myself with tasks in the back room. My shift finally ended, and I hurried out. I felt a wave of relief as I walked to my car. Getting home felt like escaping a pressure cooker. I knew I would have to face the women again eventually, but at least I had some time to prepare. I needed to figure out how to handle the situation. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I considered apologizing to the group, but I wasn't sure if that would make things better or worse. Maybe it was best to just pretend it never happened and hope everyone would eventually forget about it. I did manage to talk to Mark later that day. I acted cool and casual as I approached him, trying to ignore the burning shame in my face. I asked him if he had a good time at the team building event, and he said that he had, even though his muscles were aching. I asked him what activities he liked best and he described some game with beanbags. I made a joke about how competitive everyone gets, and he laughed. I was trying to steer the conversation toward what happened, but without giving away that I knew anything. It was awkward, but I felt like I had to try to get the truth from him directly. I wanted to give him a chance to explain before I went to our boss. So I took a breath and changed tactics. I told him I was a little drunk that night, and I thought I saw him go into a room with Sarah. I phrased it like I wasn't sure if it was him, that maybe I was just mistaken. I watched his face carefully as I said this. I needed to see if he would admit it, or if he would lie to my face. I needed to know what kind of person he was going to be about this. Then I asked him if he remembered going into one of the small side rooms off the main hall after dinner, and his face grew slightly confused as he said, he hadn't. He explained that he'd actually spent the entire time after dinner in the parking lot because he had a phone call from his family. I laughed nervously and mumbled that I must have been mistaken. I thanked him for the conversation and walked away as swiftly as I could. This made the situation even more embarrassing because I barged into the room with the wrong person in mind, and they knew it. I felt my face burning as I walked back to my coworkers. They asked what happened, but I did not give them details. I just said I confused him for someone else and made a fool of myself. They laughed, which I expected, and I tried to laugh along with them. Internally, I replayed the conversation in my head, cringing at each word I spoke. I wished I could disappear. I decided to avoid that area of the building from then on. The rest of the team building event passed without further incident, at least for me. I mostly stayed with the people I knew and avoided wandering off alone. I ate dinner and participated in the scheduled activities. I did not see the man I mistook for someone else again. By the time I got home, I hoped the whole thing would fade from memory. I tried to convince myself it was not a big deal. A few days later, the manager called me into her office. I braced myself for a reprimand, but instead, she just asked me if I was doing okay. She said she heard I had a bit of a rough time at the team building event. I mumbled something about being tired and overwhelmed, but she didn't push further. She just reminded me that the company valued my contributions and that if I ever needed to talk, her door was always open. I thanked her and left her office, feeling slightly relieved but still deeply embarrassed. I went back to my desk and tried to focus on work. My brain felt like it was running in circles. I replayed the moment I walked into the wrong office over and over. I wondered how many people knew what happened. I imagined the gossip spreading like wildfire. I tried to tell myself it would blow over, but I didn't believe it. I avoided eye contact with everyone for the rest of the day. I just wanted to go home and forget it. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had ruined my reputation. The shame was intense. The next few days were difficult. I felt like everyone was watching me. I noticed people whispering when I walked by. I tried to act normal, but it was hard. I started eating lunch at my desk to avoid the break room. I even considered calling in sick, but I knew that would only make things worse. I forced myself to go to work each day and pretend that nothing had happened. Eventually, the initial shock wore off, but the discomfort remained. I knew things would never be quite the same. Weeks have passed since this incident, and I'm still haunted by it. I still catch the occasional awkward glance from my coworkers, and I can't help but wonder what they say about me when I'm not around. I've learned a valuable lesson about thinking before acting, and about the importance of knowing what's behind a closed door. I am definitely more careful now. The worst part is that I am now unable to look that coworker in the eyes again. The idea of ever making conversation with her again fills me with an unpleasant combination of dread and shame. I considered quitting and finding a new job where this never happened, but I do genuinely like my job and my colleagues. I suppose I have to just live with this and hope that everyone will eventually move on. Recently I discovered why the door had not been properly labeled to prevent such incidents. There had been a last-minute change in the allocated spaces in the community center, so the storage room had been assigned as the changing room. However, the person responsible for informing everyone forgot. The worst part is, after I discovered this information, I went to one of my more sympathetic female coworkers to explain what happened. After hearing the full story, she laughed, then added that that specific day she was not in the changing room, and that she was sorry for laughing but I just had really bad luck. That hurt a lot, but I guess it could have been worse. I don't know why I am posting this. I think I needed to get this off my chest and share it with someone, even if it's just a bunch of strangers on the internet. So, Reddit, have you ever had a similar experience? How did you deal with the embarrassment? Any advice on how to move on from this and face my coworkers without wanting to crawl under a rock? I'm open to any and all suggestions.